Welcome to the second XMPP meetup. My name is Julian. I'm the organizer, and well, today's topic was officially the servers. So we'll have first the guys from Tagazi. I'm pretty sure I'm not pronouncing it the right way, but still, the guys from Tagazi presenting what they do, and we'll see afterwards if we have any other presenters. Feel free to ask any questions and to submit any ideas for the next topics, the next meetups that you want to see discussed. So Nathan and Mike, if you want to start.
So while he's bringing that up, we do use Tagace, but that's not what I was going to talk about today. But I can talk about it. We use it because we were able to get lots of custom contract work from the original developers. And so, we were able to do what we wanted to do with it and prioritize all of the tasks for that server, all the features for that server. And it's worked out pretty well for us. It's definitely fast and scales high for us. Right now, we're doing about 200,000 nodes in PubSub, and I've capped it out at. I've been able to test up to 150,000 nodes per subscriber, subscribers per node, and we expect to get a lot higher results out of it here in the next rewrite. But what I was going to talk to you about today was Node as code. And this is something that Julian and Jack have already done on their services, and that is essentially building your own XMPP pub sub with only the API that you need. If you've looked at the pub sub spec, it's big, and I would say a lot of it is the owner spec and the publisher spec, which is a service provider you don't necessarily need. And there's a lot of configuration business rules in the owner spec, like configuring a node to behave certain ways. And again, as a service provider, you don't really need that, and I'll go into that. And the spec, Peter's tried to keep it pretty stable, but it's a bit of a moving target sometimes. So for obscure use cases. So we're going to talk about a better solution. What's great about the spec being large and being all-inclusive is that we can have generic hosted PubSub. Tagace and eJabberD and other servers, commercial servers and stuff, they can implement the entire spec if they want to, and they can host generic PubSub, and then people can write their apps for it. So there's all sorts of subscribers models, there's all sorts of business rules based on how you configure the nodes. It's great, but as a service provider, we don't need all that, and we don't need to be interacting with our own server on the XMPP API level all of the time. It's a lot of overhead that we don't need, and it's a lot of code that we don't need. So think about the bare minimum you need from PubSub in order to provide service to your customers. Generally, you're providing feeds of some sort, feeds of what's going on your website or feeds of user activity. So do we need our users to actually subscribe to it over the XMPP API? A lot of cases, no. We can just subscribe them in the, maybe it's in a memcache database or whatever, or we can use our own internal API and just have them subscribe to that node. We don't need to use that part of the API, so we don't need that part of the spec. Do we need users themselves to publish over XMPP into PubSub to then go out of PubSub again? A lot of cases not. Your service can be providing, maybe use AMQP for internal eventing, or maybe you use XMPP, great, but maybe you just want it to pull from a database every once in a while. And then node owner configuration. As a service provider, making your own miniature PubSub implementation, it's probably just as fast to tweak your code a little bit, make a new node class, and away you go. So solving the problem. Each node is an object. In object-oriented programming, you probably have a node class, and this node class, you can override functionality to make each node behave differently. So I want to load a node for users, for the user activity on the site. So I have a special class for that I load. And then multiple nodes can use the same code, or you can have unique code for certain nodes. And so you can expose the PubSub API only as you need it. So in a lot of cases, all you need is to be pushing out those messages with the PubSub payload. You know your own subscribers. You don't need to be feeding that to some external XMPP server. You know a lot of what's going on. So just implement a subset. Go ahead, Bear. So there's been a lot of discussion in the PubSub lists about ops tasks, about maintenance of PubSub. They want, in the spec, they want to delete nodes that aren't being used. They want to expire entries within a node after a certain date. And they want this to be in the spec. And this is, this is a implementation detail. eJabberD could probably handle that. It doesn't really need to be part of the spec. We just bloat it until it's unusable. So some things you could do is you could change subscription based on account status within your own database. You could have publishing exceptions, like say this user right now is flagged as not getting live updates for whatever reason within your service.
Or if you have a pay service.
Or pay service. Well, there's already pay in the spec. But you can write your own rules for how things get delivered and why. And dynamic node generation. You've got a new user. Why use the spec to create all those nodes when you're running your own service? So, quick case study. With Seismic, we could just publish items based off of an AMQP feed internally. We could have new subscribers just sync to our own follow database in Memcache. We could have offline users automatically removed. We extended the spec to do this. For if you use the expire setting in the config and have that value as presence instead of a date, then when they go offline, they're unsubscribed. We didn't need to extend the spec. We could have just had our own business rule in our implementation. So what I suggest is that XMPP libraries out there any of you that contribute to XMPP libraries should contribute PubSub service code. And so that people that are running clients and components and things can make their own PubSub implementations very easily, and we can see a lot more customization and behavior.
Why do you call new subscribers? Is that seasoned users?
Right, so like the way, and I explained in my last presentation here, that we do kind of an inbox, outbox, public, outbox kind of setup. And so you subscribe, when you're following somebody, you're subscribing to their public outbox. And the way we have it right now is we actually have a bot that gets the events from the internal eventing of our system that says new subscribers, this guy's following this person. So then that bot over XMPP does all the subscription stuff. And that's stuff that we have to keep synced. And that's overhead that we don't need. So this is just maybe a simpler way to go about it.
So basically, in terms of implementation, you've got the stream of all the videos that are published.
Uh-huh.
And you've got different bots, basically, that take the information from this feed and then put the information
into the various nodes, right?
So
So
don't do it at the same time. It's like two different processes, basically. The publishing and then
Yeah,
the
there's a
dispatching.
number of parallel processes.
right,
Like
and
this-
well, we're just using the Tegase. This is not what we're doing. Okay, we're just using the Tegase PubSub implementation, which is the full generic It's got, probably 85, 90% of the spec. And so we configure the bots, build the nodes, configure them out, do all of that work, and has to keep all that stuff synced.
So basically the idea is build the main firehose with everything in it and then build the different workers that just connect to it and dispatches the information where it needs to be.
Right. And then you can, with the code as a node, the basis, you don't need to be doing this over the wire all the time. You could be doing it, you still have to do it over the wire, but you don't have to do it as XMPP specific. And you don't have to don't have to have just a separate layer just to do all the API calls to get things published. You might just update something in the database, and then your node might have code that checks it, or whatever your needs are. So.
And can you scale by I guess you can scale by multiplying the workers of the same kind?
Yeah.
Interesting. And how do you sync between them to be sure that they're not handling the same stuff from the timeline?
A switch of some sort. It's because you'd be distributing the load. But the bots is how we do it now. I'm suggesting that you wouldn't need to do it with bots.
You don't have maybe a 10, 20 line code sample showing it off?
I've started one,
Okay.
and I will publish that to the PubSub list if you subscribe to that. I wanted to have it done today. I started it last night, and I was like, oh, this is going to be really easy, and then got tired. So.
Publish it on the meetup page as well.
Yeah. Okay.
What are you promising now?
Just the code that I was working on to show an example of this.
Yeah, we're going to try and set up a little site that has a simple XMPP server and show the PubSub code and just have everything out there so people can look at it and see how it behaves.